everybody. We're back today with another episode of Howie's Hometown Heroes, where we feature business owners, entrepreneurs, and community members who are doing extraordinary, amazing things right there in their own community. And you would almost never know it. So today we're in, I'm going to say it wrong, Louisville, Kentucky, but BD is going to correct me because it's very hard for me to say that. In any case, we're in Kentucky, where she lives. Now, it's BD Gunnel. I'm going to make sure I get that right also.
Yes, that's correct.
She's got an awesome background in the film industry. What a fun thing to do. We all love watching films and movies and all kinds of things. And she is like right there behind the camera, producing, doing all kinds of fun stuff in Kentucky. Who knew that Louisville is the place to be? So very nice. So let me tell you a little about her. She's awesome for a person. So she was in Hollywood for a little while, but left because another project happened to come along. But it seems like that project just kept going and going and going. Different projects, but in the same area. So we just move and we're going to work no matter what. So pretty awesome. What she's really proud of is not letting that Hollywood. What's a word I could use?
Bitterness.
Bitterness, yeah. That shrinks you down and beats you up. That didn't come out. That stayed there. And she came back to that Midwest sensibilities where she grew up, which really means having a loving, open kind of attitude. Everybody's friends and everybody gets along. And I think that's a great way to live for sure. For sure. Now, what's fun is, her company is Empowered Entertainment, where she produces the movies from that company. But it's not just a money-making thing. She has to give some money to local nonprofits and also to the creative arts in schools. What a great way to using that creativity, making some money and give it to schools where kids can now also blossom and use their creativity in performing and other kinds of arts too. What a great connection to put all that stuff together. Some of the movies you may have heard of that she's on. Mob Town, all about the mafia. Everybody likes, let's shoot up everybody. It doesn't matter. Lazy Susan, a fun comedy show with Sean Hayes. And now coming out next week, I, Mordecai with Judd Hirsch. And who is the woman actor?
Carol Kane.
Carol Kane. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. That'll be a lot of fun. So thanks for being here, BD. It's great to have you on the show. I feel like I'm talking to a movie producer. Like, holy crap, that's really fun for me. I'm going to get your autograph now. So let me tell you, thanks for being here. What's a fun fact about you?
Thank you for having me. I mean, a fun fact about me is obviously you see my initials. People call me BD. Everybody's been calling me that for years, but it's actually just my initials. It's not what I was born with. But I changed it because when I first started producing, it was very difficult for women to get jobs as producers. And so by switching to my initials, it made me more ambiguous. And that helped. And I actually had laughed because I want to say a decade ago, I was writing my bio with they and them before that was a thing that everybody's doing. And it felt really wrong because I'm like, this is plural, because I grew up in a house with a mom that's very, very much about her grammar and proper grammar and all of that. So but yeah, when I first started out, it was very difficult to get producing jobs. So that's why I switched to my initials, and that's what I've been going by ever since.
Talk about like sort of like a reinventing yourself and trying to just sneak in the back door when nobody was realizing, till you could show that you actually could do what you said you could do. And that's really very cool. Well, that's really nice.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I love that. So
yeah, the people who know what it means are a very small group.
All right. Well, we'll let everybody keep in suspense, and we'll figure it out later. Maybe. So anyway, so there we go. So let's talk a little bit about what happened before the movie biz. So where'd you grow up? What kind of stuff happened, and what was that epiphany moment that got you into the movies?
Well, so my dad was in the Navy, so we moved around a lot when I was a kid, but primarily settled outside of Indianapolis for the first kind of 10 years, I would say about first grade to about my freshman year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad switched jobs at that point and we moved to Michigan. And I went there and then went back to Indianapolis for college. I went to Butler University for a full ride with music.
Nice.
And that was my whole family's very musical. My brother's a professional opera singer. And then I just go into medicine and helping people. That was very important to me. And I had moved to California at that point. And I was in nursing school and I had met my now partner, my husband, and I wasn't liking what I was seeing. It was very financially driven and it just wasn't there to help people. And it bothered me that the medical system wasn't really helping. It was more about making money. And I was trying to figure out what to do. And he said, well, you've always done makeup on my projects. Why don't you come do that? And so I was working at the hospital during the day, going to makeup school at night, and working on movies on the weekends. And for the
Wow.
first few years in the industry, I was a makeup artist. And then when we had the strike and the economic crash happened in 2008 was when I made the transition over into producing.
Very cool. Very cool.
So it's a little
Was
bit
that
of a little bit of everything.
so? Right. So there's we always told us that the thin threads that happen to get you from here to here to here to here to here, sometimes intentional, sometimes not. But we also like to say things happen for you, not to you. So, and you kind of go with it
Yes.
in that way. It's an awesome way to go. So what a great story to get you there, to meeting your husband. And then there you go. Other stuff happens. That's really very cool. Very cool. And now I know you say your son is actually part of the movie making thing too. He's kind of in that whole thing too.
Yes.
Yeah.
He acts. He's been acting since he was really, I would say about 4 or 5.
Wow.
And then he's been writing a script, and he
Oh,
comes and helps out on set from time to time. And he's now getting to that age and that size where he can actually go be a production assistant. So we're actually going to hire him on the next movie to come production assist with us.
wow. There you go. Awesome. That's it. What did you do on your summer vacation? Well, I made a movie. It's very fun. Very fun. Very fun. That's really good. And was there any special movies that you did way back then? And what was the?
Well, my first movie that made the festival circuit my first movie I produced was called Birds of a Feather, and I think it's still out on iTunes. And it was with Trevor Donovan and Olympia Dukakis and Bruce Valanche. We had a lot of fun little cameos in it, and we made it in 2 weeks. We made it for $45,000.
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
know that I could repeat that today, with today's market. But that one was really special to me because the person who wrote the script, who directed it, took a big chance on me as essentially a first time producer. And it
Oh,
was, we figured it out, we made it happen, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And so that one really is a very special one. And it's an absurd
nice.
comedy about putting on a musical of Anton Chekhov's The Seagull. So if you're familiar with theater, that's not a play you would ever turn into a musical. But we just had a lot of fun with it. And that one, I would say that's probably one of my favorites from back in the day.
Nice. 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 So what kind of so you go from nursing to makeup to producing, two, three, what seemed to me totally different things. What were some challenges you had to overcome or learn, or how did you figure all that stuff out?
The bigger thing for me, I think, was the music to nursing to film.
Ah,
That world was my whole family's musical, so there was this expectation. I have a God-given talent. I should be out doing that, and I wasn't enjoying it. It wasn't challenging for me, and I do better when I'm being challenged. And medicine was a place where I was being challenged, and I was doing very well. It just came very naturally to me. But it bothered me that we weren't there to really make people healthy. And I fought that at every step. And my professors and the doctors I work with all said, oh my gosh, you're going to be miserable because you
oh,
can't,
great.
it's very difficult to fight that system because it's a
Sure.
very large established system. And so then when my partner said, come do film with me, I felt like I had fallen into a space of my people. We joke in some respects about running away with the circus. I've convinced people to leave their day jobs, their normal jobs, and come run away with us. And if you can embrace the uncertainty because you're constantly in a gig economy, you don't have a steady paycheck, so you have to embrace that uncertainty. But you also have to embrace the uncertainty that every job will be different, and it's a
Mhm.
different group of people, and it's a different location, and it's a
Mhm.
different group of needs, if it's stunts or boats or whatever it is. And you just have to constantly learn and grow. And I feel like my brain is always being stretched
Always okay.
in this, and
Nice.
I'm always meeting new people. And I just love this area. And I feel like it's something I never knew that I could do for a
Do
living, but I don't ever see myself doing anything else.
doing
And I don't know
doing
what I
it.
would do if I didn't have
That,
this.
that is great. I mean,
Yeah.
what a great attitude to have. That you kind of had to learn, but at least it got you where you wanted to be. So that was right. So
It was
if
stressful
you
in the beginning, I will say that
yeah
the
yeah
lack of paycheck and the lack of certainty when you've lived your whole life, getting that paycheck or expecting that paycheck and
sure
budgeting and everything you're taught. And it's finally embracing that and trusting the projects will be there, trusting the money will be there, trusting
hmm
the people will be there. And if you build that trust in the universe and then it just starts showing up on your
and it
doorstep,
comes
you start
back to
going,
you.
okay, there's something
Wow.
to this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So that is awesome. That's a great way to look at that, and it just keeps coming as you go. So I really love the way that too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is there any? I mean, you've had quite a few films at festivals. They win awards, or what kind of? What I want to ask is like success stories. So how did one film get to the next, to the next, to the
Um,
next?
I had a film that I did with Martin Scorsese's daughter, Dominica, and that movie went to the Tribeca Film Festival, and we
Mhm.
got a special screening there with it, which was a lot of fun. Birds of a Feather won a few awards, a bunch of audience awards, because it was just so out there, and I think the audience really got it, but the jury's not so much. I've
Oh,
had a few short films that have won a lot
okay.
of awards, actually. One film, Rated, a family wakes up one morning and the parents have stars over their heads, and the father is 4 stars and the mom is 2.5. And so you can just hear the comedy that comes from
It
that by
comes up from that.
itself. That one actually won a lot of awards. That one hit a lot of festivals and won a lot of awards and is in the process of being turned into a feature.
Oh,
And we're just, I will say, and I said this when I just got back from Sundance actually, and I was saying that as nice as the accolades are, it hasn't been my focus. My bigger focus has just been, putting people to work and putting out good content and putting out impactful content. That's really been my focus going forward. And so it's the awards are great, the accolades are nice, but I just really want to keep working
that's a great
and
one.
continuing to affect the world with the content.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, as the end goal is not money, it's really impact of the people that you care about and that you work with. And that's a
Yes.
great way to look at that. What is so you've moved along in this kind of trajectory of things kind of happening. What, besides your husband, what are there any other mentors or people that you've worked with that had a big impact on your life?
Missy Moyer was my line producing mentor, and she came up through, I think, the Disney system, and she worked with M. Night Shyamalan in Philadelphia because that's where she was based. And she had just a wonderful background and just world of knowledge that she imparted to me. And I think part of what made me very good at what I did was her attention to detail and teaching me that side of it. And then I also have a family member who he was a bond agent. He owned a bond company for a long time. And it's been great to pick his brain over the years because, a lot of what we have to do is risk mitigation because we're putting together an army of people and we're all moving to get this movie done. And there, like we saw last year with Rust, there are potential dangers if things are
Mhm.
not done correctly. And so we're always having to weigh, the risks versus the rewards and the risk mitigation. And for me, there is nothing more important than the safety of my cast and crew.
For
And
sure.
so having had him, I think, as a mentor on that side of it, I kind of give the bond companies a run for their money because I walk in with all of the plans and the risk mitigation and if this happens, then we do this, and if this happens, then we do this.
Oh,
And I feel like it's just made me a better producer because if something goes wrong on set, because inevitably sometimes it does, you have to be able to adjust quickly, course correct, and keep moving, and make sure everybody's safe and everything is continuing on time because time is money in film. And so
sure.
it's just a matter of that safety has to be at the same level of importance as the money.
Importance of everything else. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy when you hear those kinds of accidents happen. And but okay, but at least you've hopefully you've got some of that under control. And at least that's a thing to learn. It's kind of a thing to
Yeah,
learn
it's that's all of those accidents were preventable. It's very rare that I hear of an accident that wasn't completely preventable by the right people and the right leadership and the right steps. And somehow there was a breakdown along the way of whether it was the management or somewhere in the middle. But
Somewhere in the middle,
ultimately, it goes back to the management.
management somewhere. Yeah, but so it comes from the top. How that
Yes,
stuff is enforced and moved forward. But
correct.
well, I also wanted to ask about the stuff you did for the schools, that the Creative Coalition to Schools. How does that work, and what kind of experiences or successes have kids developed from that program?
Well, so the Creative Coalition is a nonprofit. It's not mine. It's formed by a bunch of entertainment professionals, actually, whose focus was arts in schools and making sure that we're starting kids at a young age with the appreciation of what we do. And on top of that, I look at it and say, when I look at my school experience, even starting from elementary school, music was my favorite class. And then when I was in middle school, band and choir were at the same time, and I was ecstatic to do band instead of choir because it was far more challenging for me. And then once I got to high school, I was in band and choir and extracurricular choirs after school and extracurricular bands or orchestras
Whoa.
and theater. And so it was, I would say, probably 60 to 70% of my high school experience was less of the academic and so much more of the arts. And had I not had that, it was an important outlet for me because, kids have a hard time. And I think kids today have it even worse. And
Sure.
they're losing this outlet because not every kid is a sports kid and not every kid's into school governance. And if they don't have this outlet in the arts, no wonder we're seeing kids having the problems that they're having right now. And so,
Right.
so what I do with my company is at the end of the year, I mean, I do throughout the year, I donate throughout the year, but essentially I make sure that about 10%, up to 10% of my gross profits are donated to the Creative Coalition out of my company as a whole. Each movie has its own nonprofit that it's affiliated with, but Empowered Entertainment as a whole, this is what we do because if they didn't exist, I would have started an organization like this because
Mhm.
it's that important to me.
Right.
And I've always joked that if I win the lottery or some very, very, very large amount of money comes to me, in that way, that I would just go buy instruments for all of these high schools. And my partner has said, "Are you allowed to do that?" And I said, "Well, how are they going to stop me?"
That's right.
Because it's literally that important to me.
Well, that's awesome. And have you visited some schools where the program is in place, and what kind of stuff had did the kids
There,
experience from it?
There's a school here in Louisville, actually. Fern Creek High School has a media program, actually, where they help the kids learn about film and television production, which is exciting, but they have no arts programs. And I just
Oh,
don't understand the break between the two of those of seeing the value in media, but not in art. And I'm friends with the principal or the assistant principal there. And we've talked about it a few times, and it's just not in their budget. And I'm trying to figure out, like, as I start getting more involved in the community, because I'm involved in the film community here, but I'm getting more involved in the local community. And as I start doing that, I want to find out, what do they need to bring the arts programs back to the public schools.
mhm.
Louisville is very much of a private school. There's a lot of charter schools and private high schools around here. The public schools aren't looked at as importantly, and I believe they're just as important as the private schools.
Sure.
And so that's where I want to get in and help and do where I can, and then just expand from there.
Nice, nice, nice. So, I'd like to hear some. Be fun to go back, after you've implemented some programs and see what
Yeah,
your donations or even your time with the students
yeah.
there. Yeah, can
Well, and
really
the
bring
Creative
back.
Coalition, just so you know, they go and they actually lobby in DC. So they
Oh,
make sure that we have the National Endowment for the Arts. They make sure
oh,
that we keep some type of arts program alive. They keep 181 in place for the film. That's our nationwide film tax credit. They're involved at a federal level, on a national level, making sure that continues. And we need that just as much as we need the local. But
sure.
it is definitely, we have to continue to be involved at a local level.
Good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that's the future of the filmmaking industry, or
Yes.
any kind of creative thing. And I like the way you said earlier about, if you're in that creative world, your brain is constantly moving and thinking and moving ahead. If you're
Yes.
doing the same thing all the time, your brain sort of just kind of withers up. And so that's pretty cool. So let me ask you now, so if you had, with all your vast experience in producing in movies and all the stuff that you've had, if you had 5 minutes to talk to the world, what would you say?
Um, I would really want to convince the world that movies and television are an impact-based market. Everybody talks about they want to get rich quick and they invest money in movies or anything like that to get rich quick. And I think the COVID shutdown showed us better than anything how important movies and television and series and all of that were, because I don't know many people who could have gotten through the COVID shutdown without their Netflix or their Amazon
Oh,
Prime or their HBO Max, or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
fill in the blank of what they watched and what they ingested during that time. And I think we really need to make the shift and see film and television as art. Just as we see the paintings in art museums or the sculptures outside of buildings are art, film and television is art as well. And it
Definitely
needs
art
to
for sure.
be protected just as vehemently as painting and sculpture and that type of expression of art. And that's really my mission, is to change, this stigma of Hollywood being very ego driven and very me driven into being very giving to others and very they driven, and how can I help you as opposed to what can you do for me. And
Mm.
this is I feel like, looking at film and television as art is a similar thing. It's that shift in mindset.
Makes sense. That's really great. And I hope there are more. I'm going to assume, I don't know if I should assume or not, that there are people in Hollywood and New York and wherever that are think like you, and just got to kind of move forward with everybody, right?
We're building our little army. My goal, if you're familiar with Malcolm Gladwell and the tipping point,
Yeah, 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 sure.
my goal is to be the tipping point. Like, I want to push us to that point where
There
we
you go.
crest that hill, and it's just we are coasting from that point forward because it's the standard, and we don't constantly get people battling us saying, "Well, good luck with that," because they don't believe it can happen. I want it to become the norm where the people who don't feel this way are the odd mans out versus everybody else who says, "Yes, we're in this together," are the majority.
And what are the challenges to get you there? What do you think so far?
I think it's just having the platform, and really, the money is a big one. Finding the money, the people who want to invest. We've started a film fund for people who want to be a part of things like this, and so it's just a matter of people voting with their dollars, the same way as we voted for certain kinds of food or
Mhm.
specific political candidates or anything like that. It's a similar thing. We vote with our dollars. So if you find yourself wanting to be a part of something like this, we set up a WeFunder for people who would not be considered, accredited investors. And then for anybody who is considered an accredited investor, we're willing to have a conversation directly. But the money, I think, is the biggest obstacle.
Mm.
And the platform really gets it out there for people to see it, but we need people to take action on it so that we can show that this is what the people, the audience, the consumers want to see. And they want content that has this kind of impact versus just mindless, popcorn fill that doesn't do us any good. I mean, it feels like lately that's what we're seeing, and I want to try to be more impact driven in the stuff that we put out.
Well, very good. So that matters with scripts and all the other stuff too, of the projects that you actually take
Yes.
on. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So
I've turned down a handful of scripts just because I can tell they're just kind of popcorn movies that they don't even impact your state. It's not like you watch them and you're happy, or you watch them and you're thoughtful or anything. It's just there that you walk away and it filled time,
mm.
and it's I want to do away with the time fillers. I think we can have great movies. I've said this before. Like, What About Bob is a fantastic comedy that will change your state and make you laugh just as much as a movie like Spotlight, uncovered an entire system and informed people of what was happening. These are both impact driven movies on completely opposite ends of the
That's
spectrum.
the spectrum. Oh, very cool, very cool. So good. Well, I'm looking forward to more films that you're going to put together in other places where you can make a real impact. And I'm looking forward to seeing I Mordecai in a couple of weeks. That'll be a lot of fun too. So that'll be fun.
Excellent. Hope you enjoy it. I'd
Yeah,
love to
yeah,
hear your
yeah, yeah.
thoughts on it.
I'll let you know now that I know you're a part of that. That's very cool. Very cool. So, but if there's anyone you know who is amazing and doing some crazy things and fun things and impactful things in their community, let me know. Put their name in the chat, contact me, and we'll get them on the show. So whether it's your family, your business, your community, remember it's money, just like in Hollywood, makes the gears keep turning. Make sure your money is working for you in the most optimal way it can. So thanks for being here, BD. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This was lots of fun.